Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to present Audit Monitorama. This tool allows us, based on the network traffic and its subsequent analysis, to identify if there are any problems in any of its segments. In this way, in this case of a fictitious company, which has two data centers, a main data center and a backup one, we would have, for each of the network segments, relevant information that would indicate whether we are observing problems in that segment or not. Thus, we can see that in the segment STN3 the percentage of problems is 0%, whereas in the control segment it is much higher. So, if we want, we can click on the control segment and see what is actually happening. Therefore, we get the following information, which would be temporary information to show us how the quality has been varying, in this case, every 5 minutes, in an aggregated form, where the greener it is, the better, and the lighter it is, the worse the quality is. And below, we have information regarding how we have calculated the percentage of problems. In this particular case, we can see that the problem is due to the fact that there are many connections that have packet losses, whereas, however, we do not see any problems the round-trip time of packets on TCP connections. There are no saturated connections either, that is, no zero-window segments are seen in TCP. Nor are retransmissions seen in the opposite direction to where losses are seen. And finally, all connections are fine, that is, no TTL1 is seen. Even if we have already identified that the problem, in this case, is due to packet losses in the connection, we can also have very useful information, such as the volumetry both in bits per second and packets per second, which can be useful for dimensioning the router buffers, or in connections per second, which can be helpful for firewall tuning. If we go down a little further, we have the quality metrics we saw before, but in a more detailed way. Even identifying what would be the most relevant set of IP addresses. In this case of this control network, there is only one address, but if there were more, multiple points could be seen here. In this case we see, indeed, that the RTT is below 2 ms and that saturations, in general, are 0%, except in concrete case. We can see that, indeed, in one direction of the communication there are not many problems, but in the other direction we do see that there are many losses. On the other hand, there are no problems with connections not responding to the server, but there is one that, when the server has responded, the client has not delivered the answer. Finally, we see that there are also no connections that have abrupt closings, reset terminations. We can have this information for the case we have here, which would be the last hour, but we could also have it to see how it has evolved throughout the day. For example, the last 24 hours. And in this case we could observe how the traffic has been evolving over time, so that we can see those graphs that we had before, have them more detailed, and see that the retransmission problems is not something occasional, but that it is something that has really happened to us throughout the whole of the last day. If this information is not enough, we additionally have a traces panel, in which we set a specific time, for example, the last 5 minutes. We could make a capture of a trace to open it with Wireshark, or we could even generate an automatic audit firmware reporting, which we would have even more detailed information. In fact, if we click on this case I have prepared, here we could see, indeed, that we are watching that in that control network of the fictitious company Kintiso, in its main data center is having reliability problems in TCP, and in this case we could see these problems noticed before, and even much more detailed analysis, with many graphs that give us information, completely relevant, about the IP addresses that are causing the problem. I hope you found the video interesting. See you next time.